Welcome, everyone. Mark DeJesus here, ready to give you a high five as I dive into another broadcast on the subject of love and what does love look like in our life and our journey, and how does that apply to relationships and our mental health and emotional health? What does that look like? If you are familiar with my channel and materials and resources that I put together, it is my deep passion to help people to live in greater healing and freedom in their life, to live with greater mental health, emotional health, and relationship health. And a lot of it comes down to experiencing the love of our Father in heaven and being able to experience that through the grace of Jesus Christ and what he did on the cross and resurrection. And so I found in my journey the discovery of God's love to be such a refreshing thing. But I will be honest, it's not something that I necessarily experienced or learned in a deep, meaningful way a lot of my life in church. And I see in other believers that interact with me, write to me, or I get to sit down in one-on-one settings, and our history of love is filled with brokenheartedness, compromised love, where we should have been loved and it wasn't loving, it was abusive, a lot of neglect, a lot of abandonment, a lack of being equipped in love. Many people in their faith grid, there's an absence of the love of God in the midst. And they live performance-driven lives and perfectionistic tendencies. And it's like, well, how did we get here? Well, a lot of it has to do with an absence of love. And so I've been on this long journey of helping to put some language to the subject of love, to help use biblical understanding and also share a bit of my journey and share things I've observed and seen and put some structure to this a little bit and what it looks like to apply love to your life. In this particular series, it's been based on 1 Corinthians 13, and we're getting now, the plane is starting to land as far as just the coverage over that section. It's so rich. It's typically used for a wedding ceremony, and certainly it applies to the covenant of marriage. What a powerful place to see the depth of love being demonstrated. But it covers so much: our relationship with God, how we see ourselves, and how we do relationships with the world around us and everyone, really, and how we interact with that. Yes, it has different applications at different levels. But today, what I want to get into, and I believe this will be helpful for people that struggle with believing. You know, they're become cynical or just worn out, or they're trying to get their belief and they've been told you got to believe, and it's true, but they're struggling with it. And maybe it's gone into an obsessive compulsive thing where you spin, do I believe enough? Am I really saved? Do I really do all these things right? Perfectionism. Maybe it's just a constant sense of anxiety, or maybe you're just weary and worn out, and your heart feels like it's just got energy sapped out, and it's just tough to wake up and just believe. I pray today will be a blessing to your life in your journey, because one of the things that is very, very important to understand is love actually empowers belief. It empowers your ability to believe. And the premise I want to bring today is that God's love has a way of giving us the fuel to believe when we connect to his love for us. When we experience a deeper connection to love, the tank, our believing tank gets filled. It gets fueled. It gets empowered. On the other hand, our ability to believe can feel like it's getting shipwrecked in our hearts when we are actually struggling or feel disconnected to love. When you see someone struggling to believe, you will often find someone who carries a broken heart, an absence of the power of love in their life. Disappointment has taken over. Weariness has gotten the upper hand. And I'll tell you, I would, in my observations of my life and those around and people I help, life can have a way of beating the belief out of you. It can really just wear you out. And many of us are like, I believe, I'm going to try. I want to believe in God better. I want to believe in what God can do. I want to believe. And it's like your muscles are worn out or just struggling to begin with. And that's why the healing love of God is so important. We need it to heal and recover from what we've been through, because our reference for love affects our ability to believe. Look at your belief today, ability to believe in who God is and be able to rest and trust in him, be able to walk confidently in that. If we follow the trail of belief, it goes back to the place of what has love looked like in your life, in your journey. And what does love look like in the midst of your struggles and your battles? Did love help you recover, or did those battles take you out because there was a disconnect to love and the power of love? And I want to encourage many believers who are like they're trying to fix their belief struggles with an I think I can approach. I'm just going to try harder and try harder and try harder. And they struggle to make progress, and you get worn out and more depressed. I want to get to the heart of things and also help you to know when love begins to work on your heart, there's a recovery that can begin to take place, and what it means to believe again. Because that's what love does. It revives hope. It renews your perspective. It gives you meaning and purpose. If you lack those things, what's missing is not you need to be more spiritual, or you need to be a better theologian, or you need to have better performance. No, what it's revealing is your heart needs a connection to love. It's changed my life, and it's changed the life of so many. And your battles in your life are actually calling you back to the foundation. What does it mean to get rooted and established in love? And so for many of you, that's where it's at. I need to get back to the foundation. I need to get back to the fundamentals of love. Because here's the thing that you need to understand. If I'm the devil, I'll use this analogy. If I'm the devil and I want to just really strip away your confidence, get you lost in double-mindedness, confusion, and spinning all the time, I'm just going to break your heart. I'm just going to wear away. I'm going to make sure that you don't get equipped in love. I'm going to make sure that there's not an equipping in your faith grid. A lot of like performance-driven living, a lot of like condemnation angled stuff. I'm going to make sure you don't have a good connection, that mom and dad don't bring out a good equipping in that. I'm going to make sure that you don't get tools to work through the disappointments in life so you get disconnected to love, because that in the long run will take the steam out of your belief system. On the other hand, as I allow God's love to meet me where I'm at, do you hear what I said? God's love to meet me where I'm at, in where I believe, where I'm struggling to believe, where I'm just a hot mess. That's where the greatest fruit is going to take place, because God will work with us relationally to strengthen our ability to believe and walk in the power of belief. Because when we connect to love, love believes all things. It just has this ability to see things through a place of belief. You take away love, cynicism, hardness, whatever, critical, all the floodgates can open up, right? But belief is a very powerful thing. Now, what is it? I'm not trying to spend this whole time identifying belief. I'm just going to give some simple words to put some pictures to it. Belief, it's about committing and putting your trust into something or someone. As Christians, we're talking about believing in God. We're believing in the work of God. And how does that impact how we relate to those around us? Do we have the ability to believe in others? Like, hey, you can do it. You have what it takes. You're placing your confidence. That confidence word's big. And for many, and I work with a lot of people in mental health aspects, it's their confidence has gotten stripped away, and they're beating themselves up over it. To entrust, to have faith in. This is what we're talking about when we're talking about belief. And in my observation is we have these belief muscles. It's a muscle, right? It's not that belief is not there, because all you need is a faith of a mustard seed, right? It's not that belief is not there. It's just that muscle needs to be developed. And we're used to developing our belief muscles through performance. I think I can. I got to do this in someday, somewhere, right? Now, taking action, as I'll talk about later, is a part of it. But first of all, many of you are struggling with believing in your future, believing in a good hope, do I believe enough for God to work in my life? and you live in many of you live in a personal torment. People write to me in a personal torment because they feel like they're not believing in Christ enough. So instead of condemning yourself, and I'm always in the emphasis of let's wipe away the condemnation so we can talk through the matters of the heart rather than spinning out in panic and anxiety and all this stuff that's not going to be fruitful for your life and your journey. What your belief muscles need in order to get out of atrophy and start getting strengthened is the empowering work of love. I remember in the early 2000s when I began to engage what I call a spiritual renovation in my life, where I began to really allow God's love, especially his love as a father, to infiltrate my heart and life. And I realized I didn't know the love of God. I did not know God's love as a father. I felt like I was a hot mess, incredibly obsessive, anxious, depressed. I mean, just all over the place in my emotions, behaviors, lacking peace. And there I am in full-time ministry and pastoring, and I am deeply struggling, like many I meet and interact with today. And what was an amazing revelation that began to, it wasn't this light switch thing. It was just like this floodgate began to open, and my perspective changed, and I began to realize my issue is the brokenness in my heart. And what I need is I need a revelation of the love of God like never before. And I realized, I said to God, I don't know you as a father. I grew up in the church, and I don't know you as a dad. I don't know you in that love. I don't know you in that way, and I want it. And I began to read the scriptures and see just all throughout the New Testament workings, the wordings and expressions of the Father, and I didn't see it. And I got so filled with it, and then I also so filled with just a gratitude of it. And I don't mean filled of it like, oh, I was so filled and I was just everything was perfect. No, it is a journey. But I got so gripped by it. And I looked around in the body of Christ, and I realized, wow, one of the top issues, if not the very top issue Christians are struggling with, is a connected revelation to the greatest, which is the love of God. There's nothing greater. And it was in that it caused me to make a radical decision to leave the place of comfort of my pastoral position, to start from scratch and to take on a whole new journey, because I was like, we need to experience the love of God in greater dimension. We're spending a lot of time and resources into all this stuff, and we're empty. You see, what I'm saying is that experience of the Father's love, it propelled me to go, let's make a new decision. Let's go into a new place. That love fueled my belief that there's more, that I was made for more, that you were made for more, that our battles don't have to be a lifetime sentence. A second major experience with love was in the midst of that. Take that journey now a little bit later, and years later, here I am now pastoring a small church, and I'm teaching principles of heart healing and transformation and the love of the Father, and working through the heart of issues, and rolling up my sleeves with people and teaching them on a weekly basis, and just all that, and going through a very difficult season in that. And it was in that I faced myself in a whole new way, because I realized what I needed was a second dimension of experiencing deeper love. And I didn't love myself. In fact, I came to an honest recognition. I hated myself. I wasn't yelling at myself all day like people would think when you say hate yourself. It's just an absence of that love. And there's just that irritability and just that inner critic and all that stuff just barking at me. And I began to realize when times get tough, I get hard on myself. Perfectionism rises. I become obsessive. All these, and it was in that season that I became awakened to how much God, not only God loved me, but I could look at myself through the lens of that love. It radically changed my perspective, and it caused more decisions to go to a whole new level. You see, we don't make the decisions we need to make often until we experience love that fuels and opens up our eyes. And so I remember in that season there was a tension because I was being pulled into helping people that didn't go to my church. They were from other states and even other countries. And I was on phone calls and or video calls and that began to expand, but I didn't want to leave the pastoral work. I wanted to just kind of keep in that. And it was like, but I was wearing down, and God was revealing to me, you live in such pressure over yourself and your thoughts. And I want to set you free from that. And I felt that. And that love caused me to go, okay, we're leaving this pastoral work. We're charting a whole nother chapter of charting new territory. What fueled it? Because I'm super smart? Because I have just some amazing faith. I'm just such a faith man. I just got connected to the power of love. Like just a taste of it can change so much. And so when I feel my belief muscles are struggling, it's a call to revisit the deeper fundamentals and foundation of love, because love is what fuels our ability to believe. And that is a major premise I hope you're getting out of today's talk. It's love fuels and strengthens belief. There's a powerful expression that we can experience in our life, in our journey. When someone honestly says to you, hey, I believe in you, or I believe you have what it takes. There's something about statements like that make us go, it's like it fills our lungs with oxygen. Maybe some of you hearing that statement, it would bring you to tears, right? Because it reveals you haven't been told that. You struggle, and that word spoke life into that area. It gave you new energy or new empowerment. For many of us, there's such a war over receiving that. Someone could tell you, I believe in you, and there's like this resistance that meets it, that doesn't allow you to really experience the power of what love does, to say, I believe in you. Love believes all things. I believe you have what it takes. I believe in the God who is in you, working in and through your life. I believe a great example of this is Jesus' interactions with Peter, because when Jesus interacted with Peter, he didn't treat him as he was, because Peter was feisty. He'd say things that he probably shouldn't have, put his foot in his mouth. He'd be very magnanimous. He's the guy who Jesus says, get behind me, Satan. You know, but Jesus didn't deal with him as he was. He dealt with him as he saw him, because Jesus believed in the work of what God was doing in Peter. And it's very, very powerful when you have a security, the most secure leaders, fathers, mentors, bosses, the most secure leaders are the ones, they just really believe in you. And they fuel that, and they fuel that, and they fuel that. They don't hover over you. They don't micromanage. They don't get hung up on every little left turn and, where you make mistakes. It's because their love keeps things in view. It doesn't mean tough conversations aren't had. It doesn't mean any of that. But there's something very empowering. And it's interesting when Jesus is asking Peter, who do men say that I am? And Peter's rifling through what kind of the headlines are saying lately on social media. Oh, they say you're this, and they say you're that. And Jesus says, who do you say that I am? And he says, you're the Christ, the Son of the living God. And Jesus looks at him and says, yeah, you got a revelation right there. And he turned the tables and he said, and I say to you, you are Petra, meaning rock. And on this rock, I'm going to build my church. What's the rock? What's the Petra? The rock is the rock of identity. I'm going to build my church on a strong identity, and I believe in you that you're going to carry this out. I believe in the work of God in your life, that you're going to actually be a pit, like this foundational rock. The problem is Peter is everything but that. Look at his life. Look at what he says. He's got to be rebuked and here and there, and he says things at the wrong. He's goofier than many of you. When you think you're goofy and disqualified, look at Peter's journey. And he walked with Jesus face to face. But Jesus says, no, you're a rock. And I don't know, maybe some of Peter's friends or maybe neighbors, if they overheard Jesus saying this, they might have cracked up calling him a rock. He's calling out his name and calling out the meaning of that. And in another passage of scripture, Jesus said to Peter, he said, Satan has asked for you, Pete. Yep. He's going to sift you like wheat. There's going to be this pressurized experience. The devil's going to come after you with everything he's got. And we see Peter going through denying Christ, that whole experience that happened. And Jesus says to him, he says, I'm going to pray that your faith is just not going to fail. It's just you're going to hang in there. And basically he's saying, I'm going to pray and I believe you're going to make it through. Because Jesus says, when you've recovered yourself. So basically you've gone through all this stuff, you recover yourself, you turn from some of the things that you need to turn from, you rebound. Jesus says, I want you to go strengthen the brethren. So Jesus sees he's going to go through some stuff. But he's communicating, I believe, because I love you. I believe it's going to be rough. But you're going to come around and you're going to strengthen people. You're going to strengthen the brethren. Now, when Peter, keep in mind, after Jesus was crucified, Peter went back to fishing. He had, like the wind went out of his sails. And Jesus came back to him and said, listen, and had to remind him, do you love me? Do you love me? Yes, Lord, I love you. But he's all beat up, right? Because he's like, I messed up and all this stuff happened and I'm just a failure and I'm so disqualified. Okay. But do you love me? That's I don't care about how great you're doing or how well you failed or Pete, over here. Pete, do you love me? Yes, of course I love you. And get back in there and go feed people. Get out there. There's so many sheep out there that need it. See where that love fuels belief? It fueled, so Jesus carried belief out of that love of the Father based on the work of what he had done on that cross and resurrection. He's communicating that level of faith. This is where I want to encourage many of us to, because when you think you're at your worst, God still sees you through the lens of faith and still sees you from a lens of you have what it takes. And you're going to encourage others through the hell you've been through. You're going to help set people free. Love has this kind of impact. And so in your struggle, in your battle, in your weighed low, weighed heavy, feel like quitting, feel like throwing in the towel, feel alone, what you need is love. And love looks at you where you're at and meets you. It's not about like, okay, we're going to fix all your belief in one night. No, we're going to meet you in love. We're going to fill your heart with the love of the Father and let that love revive belief and strengthen it. What I'm talking about here, doesn't it show that we've not had this kind of empowerment? We're just so love deficit, aren't we? We're in a love deficit. Like we're just like everywhere we go, we're battling we're crying out for love. And if you're struggling with, I want to believe that God's working in my life. I want to believe he's real. I want to believe, right? And then you want to look for a sign and confirmation. God, show me a sign. Show me. Well, God operates through faith and your belief muscles need strengthening. But I'll tell you, if you show me someone who struggles with unbelief, I'll show you someone who needs the power of love to renew their heart and renew their perspective. Love has a way of increasing your confidence and bringing your confidence back, right? If you even watch a movie, like you see a certain movie where there's an athlete and he's lost his ability and stamina, right? Or like the old Rocky movies where he just doesn't have it, right? And what happens? His wife gives him that talk. And what does she do? She loves him. Hey, Adrian. She loves him. And then in that, it fuels him to train and get back in there again. This is how the Holy Spirit's working in our life to remind us of who we are, to remind us of what Christ has done, to remind us the Father's, He's got our back. To know the Father has my back, it fuels my belief, my ability to step out there, to not be so hung up on failure or making mistakes. It's just, I'm going to step out because I'm super smart? Nah, because I'm loved. Love encourages those places of unbelief to be sharpened. It keeps encouraging and edifying that, hey, we're gonna go at this again. And challenges some of those areas where we get fixed in not believing or struggling in that. Love chooses to believe the best in people. Ooh, this one really hits home for all of us, right? Because if we were to see Peter in his journey, we might give up on him. What's your slant in relationships? Do you choose to believe the best in people? To have a belief, God, I want to believe that their journey will work out for good. And that's somewhere in this. It doesn't mean you got to hover over their life. It doesn't mean you have to stick around with every relationship that is abusive or toxic or whatever. I'm just talking about how you see people. Let me take a minute. What's your slant in relationships? Like when you hear a bad report about somebody, do you grab onto the gossip and spin out with it and at it? When you see on social media and all those areas where they talk about other Christians or people, and do you grab the negative and just run with it? What love does goes, wait a second. First of all, I got to be careful what I'm inputting about people. And second of all, I want love to be the way that I see people, because when you see it, people get hung up on the details, right? When you operate in love, you get to the heart of what's going on. Because when you see the heart of what's going on, it postures you to be a help, to be a blessing. And what I find is love has a way of driving out cynicism, because when our belief muscles struggle, we get very cynical, don't we? It's just kind of easier to default to that, to default to the negative, to default to frustration, to default to anger. And so what I want to do is I want to encourage your belief muscles. I'm just going to give you 3 things that I want to encourage you with as takeaways from this passage of Scripture. Love believes all things. Is to let you know, number 1, belief is not built out of pressure, but by compassionate grace. So if you sit here today and say, I'm struggling with my belief muscles, notice it, but be loving towards it, because countless people are beating themselves up, condemning themselves, and then what does it do? It leaves you stuck. Compassionate grace. The compassion is God's love for you. His grace is how He works. He meets you. And the posture of struggle is, Lord, I believe, but help me with my unbelief. And I know you will help me. I remember when the Father expressed that, and I one day when I read it, the Father who was interacting with Jesus, and he said that, I believe that was a dad that was saying that to Jesus. And I remember reading that and just going, wow, that's a powerful posture. It's not a posture of perfection. It's recognizing the struggle. It's recognizing we're on a journey. And no one believes perfectly. And even people in the Bible did not believe perfectly. They struggled big time. But the posture of grace is of compassionate grace. I believe, I'm saying yes to it, but help me in the struggle. Now, what I want to bring as important application is to remind you in strengthening your belief muscles. Number 2, love is a choice. I have to bring us back to that. I've talked about that before in other materials and broadcasts. Love is a choice, but belief is a choice too. So a lot of times we base love and belief on how we're feeling. Well, I don't feel like believing. I don't feel like loving. And we often chase that. We follow it, right? Love and belief are not built on the foundation of feelings. Feelings can be a part of it, but feelings can often go counter. They can often work opposite. And where we get into a danger is when we're just checking our feelings a lot. Checking. We determine our love by our feelings. We determine our belief by our feelings. I'm not believing very well. I don't feel like it. I don't feel like my belief is there. So then we try to chase it. We condemn it and try to chase it. And then we end up in just circles. Love is empowered when you decide. Love involves the power of choosing. Love says, I choose you. When you live by the power of decision, you're not so easily swayed by every emotion and every wind of change that seems to fly by in your thoughts. You choose. The power of decision. And so what I want to encourage you today is begin each day by deciding, I'm going to believe. And when resistance rises up, you notice it, but you respond compassionate because you're like, that's not what I'm serving anymore. I'm moving into a new direction because what I feed grows. And if I keep feeding my doubts and feeding my uncertainties and feeding that and staring at it and trying to fix and all these things that I get lost into, it's just going to make it worse. And so I learned in my life, and what's great is when you live by the power of decision, it makes your life so much more powerful because your gauge is not built on the waves. I've got my compass set, and here's where I'm pointing. And it actually strengthens when you strengthen your ability to choose, you're empowered in any situation. I'll say that again. When you have the ability to choose, and you're practicing it, you're empowered in any situation. Many times we say, I don't know what to do. I'm stuck. I can't go anywhere, right? We've gotten boxed in. What's been taken from you? Your ability to decide. But I can decide today. So I made it a practice in my healing and freedom journey that when I wake up in the morning, the first thing I want to do is set my compass. Is not just check and analyze all the waves and frequencies of what I might be feeling or looking for things that might doubt what I'm feeling. I set my compass. And what is cool is over time, not right away, over time, my feelings begin to follow. Your feelings take a long time sometimes to catch up. Sometimes it can move rather quickly. Other things, depending on how long that battle's been rooted in you, takes time for the emotions to catch up. And so I decided when it comes to love, when it comes to belief, I'm not going to let the day dictate to me. I'm going to tell the day, here's where I'm headed, whether I feel it or not. And that's a great trait to have. You feel like, oh, I'm faking it, Mark. No, you're not. You're not faking it. You're practicing. Love takes practice. Belief takes practice. Where in the world have we taught Christians they should just believe and just snap into it and you just believe perfectly? It's a decision. I choose to believe. Now, in that, as you choose, I found in my life that believing is empowered through taking action. So as I make a decision, I'm going to believe, I start moving forward in that. I take steps in that because I'm basing it on choice, not all my feelings lining up. I'm choosing. So I choose to love. I act on love, and I love someone as I love myself. I choose to be loving towards myself. I choose to say yes to God's love for me. I believe in God's work. I believe in his ways. I believe he's near me, even though I may struggle in a moment to go, I don't know, is God near? Is he far away? You struggle. No, I decide to believe he's here because he says he's here, even though my feelings are not lining up. I've had to actually practice what I believe. I got to take action. And many times we get stuck because we haven't taken action on what we say we believe. In the scriptures, belief is kicked into action. It's kicked into what we begin practicing. And so I found in my life a practice of putting into action putting new belief mindsets into action before I fully believe them. and for many, like what? Like I believe I'm loved and I'm going to live that way, even though there are things within me that may resist it. I'm going to live as though God is absolutely for me, and I don't have to worry about failure or this all messing up. I'm going to take a step and God's going to be with me, even though my emotions struggle to line up with that. Now, I'm not going to judge and beat up the emotions, but we notice it, but we're saying, hey, we're moving in a love direction now. We're moving in an empowered direction. You cannot wait for the right perfect feeling in order to take a step forward. Christians are obsessed with getting the confirmation and the verification, and we just, you know what we're doing when we're saying that? I don't want to live in faith. I just want all the things to line up. Now, I'm not saying just live in blind faith every day, and there isn't that sense of witness and some things of that influence your decision. But do you understand what I'm saying? We become obsessed with, like, I need all these confirmation things. And when it comes to belief, it's like, I'm just going to take a step and believe in the love God has for me, and I'm going to put it into action. And those of you with very high emotional sensitivity, you're very connected to emotions, but that gets, I feel like in your battles, it can at times want to work against you, because what you're connected to, you can get lost in. And so we often have to learn to act before we fully feel it, because, like, this is the way that I want to live in, and I want to believe. I choose to believe. You say, I struggle to believe. Well, do you want to? Yes. There you go. Locked in. Now, act in it. I even tell people, I do a lot of work with obsessive compulsive people that have scrupulosity struggle. Am I really saved? Am I really saved? I said, do you want to be? Yeah. Okay. You said yes to it. Now, act and live as though you are. Yeah, but I don't know. I don't feel. There we go. Those feelings are going to take a while to catch up. And it's all right. Live on decision. You in your marriage, choose to believe. I don't know if I believe my husband. I don't know if I, guys say, I don't know if I love my wife. Well, do you want to? Do you want to? Okay, start moving forward in that. What does it look like every day to love, to be loving, to live in that? Right? Do you want to? Well, I don't know. Make a decision. Decide. Don't waffle. Make a decision. And out of that decision, you live. And it'll take some time for the feelings to catch up with it. It's interesting, too, because I have to learn to act before I feel it, because I have to learn how to live in something before I see it fully, like, happening in a greater way. Because if all the toxic thinking and patterns in your life were, like, completely removed right now, you wouldn't know how to live. A lot of people don't realize that. God, take all my anxiety away. How would you think? Because a lot of your thinking is based on anxiety, fight or flight all the time. So while the anxiety's there, you're learning the new. While the OCD's there, you're learning the new. While the depression's there, you're learning the new. While the anger's there, you're learning the new. While the addiction is rising up, you're learning the new, so that you develop a new lifestyle. I pray this is a great exhortation in your heart and life. I know it was for me when I was just reviewing it. I choose to believe, and I believe in you. I believe you have what it takes to overcome. Sometimes Christians struggle with that. Wait, you say, I believe in you? Does that mean I'm believing in myself apart from God? Is it me? Is it God? We always get confused. We're always trying to separate. Is this God or is this me? God and I, He is within me. So I choose to believe in the God within you working in and through your life. So when I say I believe in you, I believe in what God is doing in your life, and that you have what it takes to make the decision necessary because His grace is flowing in and through your life. I choose to believe. I choose to love. I love you, and I believe in you. If this episode and this broadcast was a blessing to your life and your journey, I pray that the love of the Father will just increase in your life and the grace of Christ will just continue to flow. And if it has been a blessing, consider a one-time donation or become a regular partner and supporter of this ministry work. And you can also go to a topics page where I have resources listed out that you can take advantage of and allow to be a blessing to your life and to your journey. If you feel like, man, I want to connect deeper to the love of the Father in my life, Experiencing God's Love as Your Father. It's not a long book. It's an easy read, but it's more for the heart. Take it slowly, digest it slowly, let it have its work in your heart and in your life. If you feel like, man, I need to go to a deeper work in I need to learn how to love myself the way maybe you're like me, where you're like recognizing I don't love myself. I'm quite hostile towards me, and I want to connect to the Father's love for me and apply that to myself and how I see myself. Then God loves me and I love myself would be a great place to go. But it's a blessing. It's a blessing to be able to speak into your life, into your journey. And I look forward to seeing you in future episodes and broadcasts, Lord willing, and the creek don't rise. But in the meantime, I'm out.